The Eagles might not have achieved their legendary status without Don Felder, whose name may not be the first that springs to mind when one thinks of the band. Hotel California's opening guitar notes seem like a captivating invitation. However, how many people are aware that Felder, a guitar prodigy, a passionate artist, and a man who was eventually shunned by his own colleagues, wrote this music himself? Felder was a quiet, modest man. He didn't have a desire for power or attention. He was the type of musician who let his instrument speak for itself, but regardless of how talented a player is, those who don't submit will be eliminated when the game becomes a struggle for dominance. And that's just what happened to Don Felder, a passionate man and guitar genius who was betrayed by those who used to call him a brother. What actually occurred, then? What led to the expulsion of Don Felder, a pivotal player in the Eagles' most memorable moments? This is a tale of power, greed, treachery, and unforgivable regrets in addition to being about a gifted musician. Come along as we explore the life of Don Felder, a brilliant man who worked in the background and contributed to one of the greatest songs ever written, but who was never given the opportunity to enjoy the success he helped create. Childhood. On September 21, 1947, Don Felder was born. Born into a working-class household in Gainesville, Florida. Despite their lack of cash, his parents gave their kids a secure upbringing. In the small town of Gainesville, where everyone knew one another, children were brought up with the traditional American South values of hard labor, church, and family. Although Felder was raised in a Baptist home and went to church every Sunday with his family, he sensed early on that he did not fully fit into that lifestyle. He showed a keen interest in music from a young age. Felder was captivated to the tunes emanating from the family radio even though no one in his family chose to pursue a career in the arts. Despite his lack of resources and access to musical instruments, he was particularly enthralled with the rock and roll music of Chuck Berry, Buddy Holly, and Elvis Presley. When Felder reached adolescence, his life took a drastic turn. He witnessed Elvis Presley perform on the Ed Sullivan program one fateful day. There was more to the concert than just music. Felder was one of a generation of young Americans who were influenced by this cultural phenomenon. The intense guitar tone, the captivating stage persona, and the overwhelming enthusiasm of the crowd captivated him. Felder realized then and there that he wanted to pursue a career in music. Felder wanted to play music but couldn't afford a guitar, so he didn't let that stop him. He was able to exchange an old dusty guitar for a box of cherry bomb pyrotechnics while chatting with a friend from the neighborhood. Many people thought it was a useless item, but Felder saw it as the key to a completely different universe. He taught himself by listening and imitating as he had no formal education, no teacher, and no books. He practiced until his fingers hurt, repeatedly rewinding music on the radio in an attempt to understand every note, but he never gave up. Felder met people who were as passionate about music as he was while he was a student at Gainesville High School. Stephen Stills, who would go on to join Crosby, Stills, and Nash, was one of them. As they practiced together and shared guitar skills they had independently learned, they soon became friends. Felder also accepted a position at a nearby music store, where he could practice on nicer instruments and pick the brains of more seasoned performers. Meeting Duane Allman, a talented guitarist who would eventually create the Allman Brothers Band, was one of the most significant events of Felder's early life. Allman started playing slide guitar when he entered the music store where Felder worked at the time. Felder had never seen such a technique. Allman took the time to demonstrate to Felder how to place the slide on his finger and produce the fluid, flowing sound that made the technique so distinctive after being impressed by the little boy's excitement. Felder learned an invaluable technique that he would later use in many of his iconic tunes. Early career Don Felder's life was everything but simple after he left Gainesville. All he had was his extraordinary guitar talents and an unwavering faith that he could succeed in the music industry. He had neither fame nor fortune. His early years in the business were filled with hardships. He played in various bands, moved from city to city, and struggled to make ends meet while pursuing his love. Felder joined the jazz rock group Flow when he first got to New York. Rock music was changing quickly at the time. Has a large number of young musicians trying out novel genres. Published an album in 1970 under the jazz fusion label CTI Records. Despite their talent, the band's style did not garner much recognition, and Flow eventually broke up. Unfazed, Felder relocated to Boston and secured employment at a recording studio. He was able to continue honing his guitar talents and learn about recording techniques at this position. He worked with a variety of musicians during this time, broadened his network, and developed a deeper comprehension of the music business. He was able to flourish during that time as a guitarist and as a creative artist, especially in the areas of arrangement and harmonization. But when he relocated to Los Angeles in 1973, he had his true chance. the center of the music business, where all aspiring musicians were looking for their big break. He began performing and taking part in recording sessions for other artists with folk rock singer-songwriter David Blue. He was able to reconnect with Bernie Leadon, a former Gainesville buddy who was now a member of the Eagles, through this effort. Leadon saw that Felder had something unique to give the Eagles, who were still in their infancy at the time. Felder was asked to join the Eagles for a recording session in the beginning of 1974, and he played guitar on the song Good Day in Hell. The other members were instantly struck by his powerful guitar playing. Felder received a formal invitation from the Eagles to join the band just one day later. A new phase in Don Felder's career began at this time. Now a member of one of the greatest rock bands ever, he is no longer an undiscovered musician. However, tensions that would eventually cause disputes and divisions within the band accompanied the glory, laying the groundwork for the next scandals. Prosperous career. The most significant turning point in Don Felder's career came when he joined the Eagles in 1974. The Eagles were mostly recognized for their gentle country rock sound when he joined the group. Felder, however, contributed to broadening their musical horizons by including more robust rock components. His rock and blues-influenced guitar playing and slide guitar prowess made him an important contributor to the band's distinctive sound during its heyday. One of These Nights, released in 1975, was Felder's first official album. The Eagles achieved number 1 on this record, which was the one that really took them to the top. It produced several successful songs, such as Lion Eyes, Take It to the Limit, and most famously, the title track, One of These Nights, and was included on the Billboard 200. Although Felder wasn't the album's main songwriter at the time, his guitar work gave it a more incisive, sophisticated feel. His talents were especially noteworthy in creating strong guitar solos and harmonizing, which were absent from earlier Eagles albums. Visions, a tune Felder co-wrote and the only Eagles song outside of Don Henley and Glenn Frey's catalog where he provided the lead vocals, was one of the album's highlights. Don Felder's composition of the instrumental foundation for Hotel California, one of the best rock songs ever, would surely be considered a turning point in his career. Felder discovered a novel chord progression by chance while playing his 12-string guitar on a laid-back afternoon in 1976 at his Malibu home. He created a tape and submitted it to Glenn Frey and Don Henley after seeing the melody's potential. They realized right away that it had the potential to be something exceptional. Felder and Joe Walsh improved the dual guitar solo, creating one of the most recognizable guitar solos in rock history, while Henley composed the lyrics. Hotel California was more than just a hit tune. It turned as an era's defining anthem. The Eagles' album of the same name solidified their status as one of the greatest rock bands of all time, sold over 32 million copies worldwide, and won the Grammy Award for Album of the Year in 1977. Felder and Walsh's dual guitar solo was eventually listed by many prominent music journals as one of the best guitar solos ever. After Hotel California, there was an immense pressure to duplicate its success. The Eagles' next album, The Long Run, 1979, took an exceptionally long 18 months to finish. Felder was instrumental in creating unique guitar melodies and harmonies, making sure the album upheld the band's high caliber. The Long Run was a huge smash even though it was unable to match Hotel California's enormous success. Heartache Tonight, which received the Grammy Award for Best Rock Performance, I Can't Tell You Why, and the title track, The Long Run, were among the album's hits. It sold over 8 million copies in the US and peaked at number 1 on the Billboard 200. Felder's usage of the talkbox guitar effect to provide a unique sound that was entirely different from earlier Eagles songs was one of his most notable contributions to the album Those Shoes. His inventiveness was demonstrated by this song, which also assisted the Eagles in keeping up their leadership in the rock music industry. Don Felder was a crucial member of the band during its heyday and helped write many of the band's iconic songs. He formed one of the most fearsome guitar duos in rock with Joe Walsh, transforming Eagles' performances into powerful shows that struck a balance between explosive solos and harmonic accuracy. Hundreds of thousands of fans regularly attended the Eagles' concerts, especially the 1977 Hotel California tour, which turned out to be one of the decade's most successful. Felder's guitar prowess and captivating stage persona were on full display at this point. In addition to his financial success, Don Felder received other honors for his services to the Eagles. Hotel California won 3 Grammy Awards, including Album of the Year in 1977. Their greatest hits from 1971 to 1975 sold over 38 million copies, making it the best-selling album in the United States ever. This was the apex of Don Felder's career, and he was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1998 along with the other Eagles members. He had established himself as an indispensable member of one of the most illustrious rock bands in history. However, cracks had already started to appear when standing at the top. Even though the Eagles were still quite successful, there was no longer any unity in the band. Conflict and collapse. The Eagles' internal conflicts remained high even after they achieved the highest level of success. One of the main contributors to the band's sound, Don Felder, started to feel more and more excluded from crucial choices. Felder felt that the Eagles were supposed to be a team, and that each member should be given equal credit and remuneration for their services, even as Don Henley and Glenn Frey consolidated their hold on financial and political authority. Early on in the band's existence, all members received an equal part of the revenues. But with Hotel California's enormous popularity, Henley and Frey progressively took charge. The other members, particularly Felder, felt excluded and angry as they insisted on receiving the lion's share of album sales, tour proceeds, and songwriting royalties. Felder believed his creative role was being eroded during the 1979 recording of The Long Run, since Henley and Frey controlled a large portion of the band's direction. Over the course of the demanding 18-month recording process, tensions escalated and the members' relationships were further strained. The Eagles' performance at a fundraiser for Senator Alan Cranston in Long Beach, California, on July 31, 1980, was the culmination of everything. Felder had been contemptuous when he met Cranston before to the show, which angered Glenn Frey. Frey repeatedly threatened Felder on stage during the concert, amid the audience's applause. "Following this show, I'm going to kick your ass." Felder gave the stare back in obstinate silence, refusing to back down. Tensions between the two escalated backstage after the concert, resulting in a furious altercation. The Eagles reached their breaking point because of this last straw. Officially, the Eagles split shortly after the incident. Glenn Frey said something dramatic. "Until hell freezes over, the Eagles will never be reunited." Felder started his solo career after the other members parted ways. The internal strife was far from resolved, though. When the Eagles got back together in 1994, more than 10 years later, things were not as peaceful as they appeared. The final betrayal and reunion. The Eagles unexpectedly got back together in 1994 for the Hell Freezes Over tour, which was named after Glenn Frey's earlier remark that the band wouldn't get back together until hell freezes over, after more than 10 years apart. This was a historic occasion for fans, a chance to witness the iconic band once more. However, beneath the glitz of their reunion, the Eagles were anything but a cohesive team. Don Felder quickly came to the realization that things had changed in ways he could not have predicted. Felder realized immediately upon his return that the Eagles were no longer a cohesive unit. Rather, Glenn Frey and Don Henley established themselves as the band's main leaders and had complete control over everything, including the band's money and creative choices. The band's musical direction and revenue sharing were among the major decisions that Frey and Henley made alone, without consulting the other members. Felder had been instrumental in creating the Eagles' sound, but now he was merely a hired hand, a performance without a voice, no authority, and no genuine say in the band's future. When Henley and Frey struck huge deals and made tens of millions of dollars from live performances and album reissues, this became brutally evident. But Felder only got a small portion of the earnings. Felder became more and more alone and irritated with Henley and Frey's management of the band over time. When he got an unexpected phone call in 2001 telling him that he had been dismissed, it was the tipping point. He was only briefly informed that he was no longer a member of the Eagles. There was no internal discussion or explanation. Felder left the band without hesitation after almost 30 years, while Henley and Frey remained in charge and kept making hundreds of millions of dollars without having to tell him. Felder, unable to accept this treachery, chose to sue the Eagles, accusing Henley and Frey of financial manipulation, power abuse, and contract violations in his unjust termination. The case continued for 6 years, turning into one of the band's most notorious court cases. Felder also released Heaven and Hell, My Life in the Eagles, 1974 to 2001 at this period, which revealed the band's darker side and explained how he was wrongfully kicked out. By exposing the truths concealed behind the Eagles' well-preserved facade, the book swiftly rose to prominence as one of the most contentious histories of the band. Felder received a sizable cash payment when the lawsuit was ultimately resolved out of court in 2007, but he was barred from ever joining the band again. He carried on with his solo career, but he would never be able to join the Eagles. Many people questioned if Felder would go to Glenn Frey's funeral when he died in 2016, but the answer was negative, and their connection was ruined. And Felder never got the opportunity to make amends with Frey before to his passing. Regardless of what happened, Felder's legacy is indisputable. For many Eagles supporters, his departure was a huge loss. His influence on timeless songs like Hotel California endures, guaranteeing his position in rock history will never diminish. Personal life. Don Felder's personal life has had its share of highs and lows, even outside of the stage and the heated disputes with the Eagles. He is most recognized for being a talented guitarist, but he has also had serious problems in his marriage, family, and personal life that have permanently altered him. Before his career really took off, in 1971, Felder married Susan Felder. They have 4 children, Jesse, Rebecca, Cody, and Leah, and were married for almost 30 years. Susan was Felder's pillar of support during the early years as he worked to realize his ambition. But when the Eagles rose to prominence as one of the world's most popular bands, things started to shift. Along with fame and money, the band's success also brought with it unavoidable temptations. Felder and his family grew apart over time as a result of the demands of the music business, long hours spent in the studio, and frequent touring. Even though he wasn't renowned for the wild parties and careless ways of some rock stars, juggling his professional obligations with his domestic duties became more challenging. Susan made an effort to keep the family together, but their marriage was irreparable as the physical and mental distance increased. Felder and Susan ended their nearly 30-year marriage in 2000 with a legal divorce. He was devastated by the split, particularly since it occurred only a year before he was let go by the Eagles. Felder lost his family and the profession he had spent nearly 30 years establishing in the span of 2 years. He went through a depressive phase after the divorce and had a hard time starting over. But time gave Felder a new sense of equilibrium. He concentrated on his solo career while staying near his kids. After years of courtship, he fell in love once more in 2007 with Catherine Ronick, and the two became engaged. Felder has avoided the turbulence of the entertainment world by keeping his personal life private despite his background in the spotlight. One of Felder's main hobbies outside of music is golf, which he took up as a pastime when he was younger. He regularly takes part in charitable golf competitions and makes connections with other singers who are as passionate about the game as he is. After the upheavals of his past, golf has become a means of relaxation for him. Even though he is in his 70s and no longer seeks fame, Don Felder still composes, performs, and pursues his passion for music. He has decided to live a more tranquil life after all the upheaval he has experienced. Continue to spread lovely music and savoring time spent with loved ones. Current existence and legacy. Even though Don Felder is in his 70s and no longer performs for the Eagles, he still pursues his love of music. He has maintained a prosperous solo career and cemented his place as one of the greatest guitarists of his time, even though he left the band in 2001. Felder made the decision to go on, continuing to produce and inspire music, rather than letting previous disputes define his legacy. Felder concentrated on reviving his career when he filed a lawsuit against the Eagles. After years of seclusion, he made a powerful return in 2012 with the publication of his solo album Road to Forever. Fans responded favorably to the record, demonstrating Felder's continued appeal as a performer. His distinctive approach, which combines soulful guitar melodies with strong yet sophisticated rock components, was on display in songs like Fall from the Grace of Love, which included Crosby, Stills, and Nash. He published American Rock and Roll in 2019, an ambitious endeavor that included rock icons Mick Fleetwood, Sammy Hagar, Slash, and others. In addition to paying homage to classic rock, the CD demonstrated Felder's ongoing impact on the music business. Don Felder's name will always be connected to the Hotel California tale, even though it is no longer connected to the Eagles. The guitar melodies he wrote still have resonance every time the song is played, despite his departure from the band. Felder, a talented guitarist who fell victim to power disputes within the Eagles, is nonetheless remembered by fans as an essential component of the team's success. Don Felder continued to tour the United States in 2024, giving top-notch performances of his timeless songs. He performed at a number of music festivals and special events, such as shows at well-known outdoor locations and large casinos. He also continued to be active in the media, taking part in interviews where he related tales from his time with the Eagles and his career. Despite not putting out a new album in 2024, Felder made time to write new songs, giving hints about what he might do in the future. Felder continued to stay busy with a full tour schedule as 2025 got underway. In order to give fans the chance to see his thrilling live performances, he announced 45 dates across the US and Canada. Along with his notable solo songs from American Rock and Roll and Road to Forever, his set list included classic Eagles hits. But Felder had a health scare when performing on the Rock Legends cruise in February 2025. He had to leave the stage for emergency medical care because he was dehydrated. His condition improved after receiving intravenous fluids, and after he healed completely, he was anticipated to return to his tour schedule. Felder is still upbeat and dedicated to his work in spite of this setback. For his devoted admirers, every performance is a unique occasion, and he remains a cherished veteran artist. In addition to the classics he co-wrote with the Eagles, Don Felder's greatest legacy is his enduring influence on rock guitar. Generations of musicians have been inspired by his dual guitar solo with Joe Walsh on Hotel California, which is still regarded as one of the best solos in history. Felder was instrumental in turning the Eagles from a country rock band into one of the best rock bands of all time, regardless of previous disagreements. Don Felder still performs, writes music, and lives his life as he sees fit today. Even if he has achieved peace after years of turmoil, his music still has an impact on audiences. Felder is no longer constrained by his previous disputes and can focus only on his biggest passion, music. How do you feel about the amazing adventure of Don Felder? Have you been influenced by his music in any way? Leave a comment below with your opinions. For more motivational tales, remember to like and subscribe to our channel if you enjoy reading about music icons.